My name is Grace Holloway, and I was born into chains on a tobacco plantation in Talbot County, Maryland, in the year 1831. The eastern shore stretched flat and endless around us, the Chesapeake Bay glittering in the distance like a promise never meant for me. Master Holloway owned 200 acres and 37 souls, and I was one of them, a possession counted alongside horses, plows, and barrels of cured tobacco. I remember my mother's hands. They were rough and cracked from years of labor, but when she held my face between those palms, I saw both love and terror in her eyes. "You mind yourself, Grace," she would whisper. "Keep your head down and your mouth closed. That's how we survive." I didn't understand then what she was teaching me. I thought obedience was simply the way of the world, like rain falling or seasons changing. Master Holloway was not the worst of men, or so the house servants would say. He did not whip us as often as other masters. He allowed us Sunday afternoons. He let us keep small gardens behind our cabins. These mercies were supposed to make us grateful, compliant. And for years, so many years, they did exactly that. I worked in the big house from age 9, first in the kitchen, then as chambermaid, finally as personal attendant to Mistress Holloway, a pale, nervous woman who spent her days embroidering and complaining of headaches I now suspect were born from the weight of her own complicity. I learned to move like a shadow, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to make myself invisible except when my hands were required. Master Holloway had a voice like velvet over iron. When he gave an order, he expected immediate compliance. "Grace, bring my coat. Grace, tell cook we'll have guests. Grace, you'll do as you're told." And I would. I always would, because survival required it. Because I had been taught that my obedience was the only thing standing between me and the auction block, between me and the whip, between me and complete annihilation. The thing I feared losing most was not my life, though that was precarious enough. It was the small, protected space I had carved within the brutality, a space where I could still think my own thoughts, remember my mother's songs, imagine that somewhere inside me lived a person who was more than what they had made of me. Master Holloway never needed to raise his voice with me. He knew I would obey. He thought I would obey forever.
The injustice of my existence revealed itself slowly, like dawn breaking over that flat Maryland landscape. Inevitable, illuminating, impossible to ignore once begun. I was 23 when I first understood that my obedience was not virtue, but violence I committed against myself. The realization came not in a single moment, but in an accumulation of small humiliations that together formed the map of my captivity. There was the morning Mistress Holloway slapped me for breaking her mother's teacup, an accident born of exhaustion after 14 hours of labor. I apologized immediately, profusely, my head bowed and voice appropriately afraid. But as I stood there, cheeks stinging and eyes burning with tears I dared not shed, I heard myself and felt suddenly, violently sick. The apology had been automatic, unthinking. I had apologized for existing in a way that inconvenienced her. I had apologized for being human enough to make mistakes. There was the evening Master Holloway sold old Samuel, who had worked the plantation for 40 years. Samuel had asked, just once, if his grandson might be spared field work, if the boy might learn to read. It was not defiance, merely a question, a hope spoken aloud. 2 weeks later, Samuel was gone, sold south to Mississippi cotton plantations where old men went to die in harness. Master Holloway announced it at breakfast, tone conversational, as if discussing weather. Mistress Holloway nodded and asked for more tea. I poured it with steady hands and wondered if this was how one's soul died, not all at once, but in fragments. There was the night I overheard Master Holloway's son, Thomas, discussing me with his friend in the parlor as I served their brandy. They spoke about my body as if I were not standing there, as if I were no more conscious than the furniture. Thomas wondered aloud whether I might breed well, whether I might produce strong children for the plantation. His friend laughed and made a crude suggestion. I kept my face perfectly blank, movements efficient and invisible, but inside me something cracked. The memories that sustained me began to feel like weapons turned inward. My mother's voice, "Keep your head down," my grandmother's wisdom, "We endure because we must." The songs we sang about rivers we would cross and burdens we would lay down, but always tomorrow, always in the next world, always after we had finished suffering through this one. I had learned to find pride in my endurance, to measure my worth by how much I could bear without breaking. But now I wondered, what if endurance was not enough? What if by enduring, I was allowing them to believe this was acceptable, that I was content, that their ownership of me was somehow natural and right? The tension built in me like water behind a dam, pressure mounting with each passing day.
The breaking point came on a Tuesday in September, unremarkable in every way except that it changed everything. The tobacco harvest was in full swing, the air thick with dust and the smell of curing leaves. I was in Mistress Holloway's chambers, laying out her dress for the evening, when Master Holloway entered without knocking. He stood in the doorway, expression pleasant, voice mild. "Grace," he said, "I've made arrangements for you. Thomas needs a woman in his household. You'll move to his cottage this week. You should be grateful. It's a fine opportunity." The words hung in the air between us. Thomas's household. I understood immediately what he meant, what he was not saying aloud. This was not about housework or cooking or any legitimate labor. This was about making me available to his son in a way that was sanctioned, unspoken, and absolute. I was being given like a gift, transferred like property, my body and future decided in conversation I had not been part of. "No." The word came out quietly, almost a whisper, but in the silence of that room it rang like a church bell.
I had not planned to say it.
I had not rehearsed this moment or prepared myself for rebellion, but standing there, holding Mistress Holloway's silk dress in my hands, I felt something inside me rise up, something that had been pressed down for 23 years, something that would not be silent anymore. Master Holloway's expression did not change immediately. He looked at me with confusion first, as if I had spoken in a foreign language, as if the sound I had made was incomprehensible. "What did you say?" His voice remained calm, but something flickered behind his eyes. Surprise, then disbelief, then the beginning of anger. "I said no, sir." Louder this time, clearer. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs, but I did not look away. I met his eyes directly, something I had been trained since childhood never to do. "I won't go to Thomas's household. I won't do what you're asking of me." The silence that followed was terrible. I watched emotions cross Master Holloway's face like clouds across the sun, confusion giving way to outrage, outrage hardening into fury. He had never raised his hand to me before, but I saw his fists clench and knew he wanted to. I saw him struggle with himself, with the image he held of being a reasonable man, a good Christian, a master who did not need violence because his slaves loved and obeyed him willingly. "You will do as you're told," he said finally, voice low and dangerous. "You seem to have forgotten your place, Grace. You seem to have forgotten who you belong to." "I belong to myself," I said. The words left my mouth before I could stop them, and I knew I was crossing a line from which there could be no return. I have always belonged to myself. Something inside me had torn loose, something I had kept carefully leashed and hidden for 23 years. It was not recklessness, though it might have looked like it. It was clarity. It was the sudden, blinding recognition that there were fates worse than punishment, worse than pain, worse even than death. The worst fate of all was to participate willingly in my own dehumanization, to smile and bow and say, "Yes, sir," while they erased everything I was. "You may own my labor," I continued, my voice stronger now. "You may own my time, but you do not own my consent. I will not go to your son. I will not be used that way. Do what you will to me, but I will not obey this." Master Holloway's face had gone red, veins standing out on his forehead. For a moment, I thought he would strike me himself, right there in his wife's bedroom. His hand actually rose, trembling in the air between us. But then he seemed to remember himself, remember who he was supposed to be. He lowered his hand slowly. "You will regret this," he said, each word deliberate and cold. "You will learn what happens to slaves who forget themselves." He left the room, his footsteps heavy on the floorboards, and I stood alone, my hands trembling, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The silk dress had fallen to the floor without my noticing. I bent to pick it up and found that my legs would barely hold me. The fear came then, rushing in like flood water. Fear of what I had done, of what would happen next, of the punishment I knew was inevitable. But beneath the fear was something else, something I had never felt before. It was not quite pride, not quite joy, but something close to both. It was the feeling of having spoken my own truth aloud, of having claimed my humanity in a world that insisted I had none. I had said no. I had refused. For the first time in my life, I had chosen my own path, even knowing where it led. I finished preparing the room mechanically, my body going through the familiar motions while my mind raced. I knew what came next. Master Holloway would not let this stand. He could not afford to, not in front of the other slaves, not in front of his family, not even in front of himself. To allow me to refuse would be to admit that his authority was not absolute, that we were not the willing, grateful servants he liked to imagine. I had challenged the foundation of everything he believed about himself and his world. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in my narrow cot in the women's quarters, listening to the breathing of the others around me, and waited for morning. I thought about my mother, long dead, and wondered what she would say. Would she understand why I had done this? Would she be proud, or would she think me foolish for throwing away the relative safety I had built? I would never know. The consequences came with the dawn. I heard the overseer's boots on the path before I saw him, heard him calling my name in a voice that made the other women shrink back into their blankets. I rose and dressed quickly, my hands steady despite the fear thrumming through my veins. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me cower. They assembled all the slaves in the yard between the big house and the tobacco barns. This was theater, I understood, a performance meant to reinforce the order of things, to remind everyone of the price of defiance. Master Holloway stood on the porch, his face carefully blank. He did not look at me directly. He could not, I realized. To look at me would be to see the truth of what he was doing, and he needed to believe himself a just man. The overseer read out my transgression in terms that made it sound like I had committed some great crime rather than simply refusing to be given to a man I did not want. Disobedience, insolence, refusal of lawful orders. The words meant nothing to me. I knew what I had done and why. 20 lashes. I heard the number, but did not react. I had seen this punishment before, administered to others for smaller offenses. I knew what was coming. They tied my wrists to the whipping post, and I pressed my cheek against the rough wood, closed my eyes, and prepared myself. The first lash burned like fire across my back. I bit my lip to keep from crying out, tasted blood and salt. The second was worse, striking across the wound the first had made, tearing skin that was already torn. By the 5th lash, I was struggling to remain silent. By the 10th, I had failed, small sounds escaping despite my determination. but I did not beg. I did not apologize. I did not take back my refusal. When it was over, they cut me down, and I fell to my knees in the dust. Blood soaked through the back of my dress, and the pain was enormous, all-consuming. But through it, I felt that same strange feeling from the night before, that sense of having claimed something that was mine, of having drawn a line they could not cross even as they punished me for drawing it. Old Ruth helped me to my feet and half carried me back to the quarters. She cleaned my wounds with water and herbs, her hands gentle, but her face troubled. "Child," she whispered, "what have you done?" "What I had to," I told her. My voice came out weak and raw, but the words were true. I couldn't obey that. I couldn't. She shook her head, but I saw something in her eyes that might have been understanding. "They'll break you if they can," she said. "They can't let this stand." "Then let them try," I said. "But they won't make me sorry. They won't make me wish I had said yes." And I wasn't sorry, even through the pain. Even knowing what I had sacrificed, I was not sorry. They sent me to the fields the next day, my back still raw and bleeding. It was meant to humiliate me, to show me the consequence of pride, to demonstrate that the small privileges I had earned in the big house could be taken away as easily as they had been given. I was a house slave no longer. I was relegated to the lowest position on the plantation, to the brutal labor under the burning sun that killed people before their time. I took my place among the field workers with my head high despite the pain. They watched me warily at first, this woman from the big house, this fool who had thrown everything away for a single word of defiance. They had learned long ago not to resist, not to draw attention, not to make themselves targets. My presence among them was a reminder of what happened when you forgot these lessons. But I did not complain. I did not weep or rail against my fate. I learned the rhythm of the work, the bend and reach and pull of harvesting tobacco, the weight of the sun on my shoulders, the ache in my back that had nothing to do with the whip and everything to do with the endless hours of stooping. My hands blistered and then hardened. My body adjusted to the demands being made of it. And slowly, the wariness in the other workers' eyes began to change. There was Beulah, a woman my age who had been born in the fields and would die there. She worked beside me in silence for 3 days before she spoke. "You could have had it easy," she said finally, her voice neither judgmental nor sympathetic. "You could have done what he wanted." "No," I said simply. "I couldn't have." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I suppose you couldn't at that," she said. And after that, she began to teach me the small ways of protecting myself in the fields, how to pace my work to save my strength, how to stand to ease the strain on my back, which overseers to avoid, and which might look the other way if you needed to rest. There was Marcus, who had lost his wife to sail 3 years before and carried the loss in his eyes like a wound that never healed. He accidentally broke tools with just enough frequency to slow the work without earning punishment. "Little victories," he told me one evening. "They think we're clumsy, but we're choosing. Every broken hoe handle is a choice." There was old Ruth, who I had known from the quarters but never truly seen before. She knew herbs and healing, whispered about passages north, about safe houses, about people who would help if you were brave enough to run. She pulled me aside one evening, her weathered face serious. "What you did," she said quietly, "it matters. Not just for you. The young ones are watching. They're learning that we don't have to swallow every bitter thing they try to feed us." I began to understand that my refusal, my punishment, my demotion, all of it had meaning beyond my. Thomas came to find me in the fields 2 weeks after my whipping. He stood at the end of my row, his expression petulant and angry, like a child denied a toy he believed was rightfully his. I saw him from the corner of my eye, but did not acknowledge him immediately. Let him wait, I thought. Let him stand in the sun and dirt like the rest of us for once. When I finally straightened and turned to face him, I saw surprise flicker across his features. Perhaps he had expected to find me broken, ready to reconsider, willing to apologize for my foolishness. Instead, I stood there with dirt under my fingernails and sweat on my face, my back still scarred beneath my dress, and met his gaze without flinching. "You're being foolish, Grace," he said, trying to make his voice authoritative, trying to sound like his father. "You could have comfort. You could have privileges. Instead, you choose this." He gestured at the field around us, at the other workers who had stopped their labor to watch this confrontation, at the visible evidence of my diminished status. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a boy playing at being a man, someone who had never questioned whether his desires might not be more important than someone else's humanity. He believed he was being generous, offering me a better situation than the fields. He could not comprehend that what he was offering was not a gift, but a violation. "I have already chosen," I told him, my voice calm and clear, "and I would choose this 1,000 times over what you were offering." His face flushed red. "You think you're better than this? You think you're too good to." "I think I'm a person," I interrupted. "I think my body is my own. I think I have the right to say no to things I don't want, even if you don't believe I do." For a moment, I thought he might strike me, might call the overseer, might find some new punishment to inflict. But instead, he just stared at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Confusion, genuine confusion, as if I had spoken in a language he had never learned. The idea that I might have thoughts, feelings, desires of my own that were separate from his needs had simply never occurred to him. "You're insane," he said finally. "You're going to regret this for the rest of your life." "Maybe," I said, "but it will be my life. My regret. Mine to carry. That's worth more to me than anything you could have given me." He left then, stalking back toward the big house, and I returned to my work. My hands were shaking, I realized, but not from fear. From something else. From the strange, fierce joy of having spoken my truth again, of having refused again, of having claimed again the humanity they wanted to deny me. Beulah came to work beside me, not saying anything, just working in companionable silence. But after a while she began to hum, one of the old songs, the ones about freedom and crossing over. And one by one, other voices joined hers, until the field was full of music. It was a small thing, that song. But in that moment it felt like everything.
The seasons turned. Autumn gave way to winter, and the brutal work of harvest gave way to the different brutality of cold fields and frozen ground. I learned to wrap my hands in rags to protect them from the frost. I learned which corners of the quarters caught the most warmth from the fire. I learned 100 small strategies for survival that the field workers had known all along. Master Holloway never spoke to me again directly. Sometimes I would see him watching from a distance, his face unreadable. I think my continued existence troubled him, not my suffering, which he probably thought I deserved, but my refusal to be broken by it. I should have been an object lesson in the price of disobedience. Instead, I was evidence that punishment did not always achieve its intended purpose. The other slaves began to test their own boundaries in small ways. Beulah asked for a day off when her son was sick, something she had never dared before. The overseer denied her, but she had asked, and that mattered. Marcus started speaking up in the quarters, talking about what he had heard from slaves on other plantations, about unrest in the cities, about changes that might be coming. Old Ruth's whispers about the North became less cautious, more open. I don't claim credit for these small rebellions. Each person found their own courage, made their own choices. But I think perhaps my refusal had shown them something, that resistance was possible, that saying no did not always lead to complete destruction, that there was power in claiming your own humanity even when the world insisted you had none. In the spring, Mistress Holloway took ill. The fever came on suddenly and worsened quickly despite the doctor's ministrations. The new girl they had brought to the big house to replace me was young and frightened and had no knowledge of nursing. Master Holloway sent for me. I stood in his study for the first time since that September day, and we looked at each other across a distance that had nothing to do with the physical space between us. "She's asking for you," he said finally. "She wants you to tend her." I could have refused. Part of me wanted to let him understand what it felt like to need something from someone who had the power to deny you. But Mistress Holloway, for all her complicity, for all her small cruelties, had not been the one to send me to Thomas. She had been a victim of the same system in her own way, traded like property in marriage, given no choice about her own life. I would not punish her for Master Holloway's sins. "I'll tend her," I said, but I returned to the quarters after. I don't come back to the big house to stay. I don't take up service as if nothing happened. He wanted to argue. I could see it in his face. But his wife was dying and he needed me. So he nodded, and I went to her bedside. I sat with Mistress Holloway for 3 days and nights as the fever consumed her. I bathed her forehead with cool water, gave her sips of broth when she could manage them, held her hand when the delirium took her, and she cried out for her mother, long dead. She was 40 years old and looked 60 in the grip of the illness. I wondered if she had ever been happy, even for a moment. On the second night, in a brief period of lucidity, she looked at me with clear eyes. "Grace," she whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say." "Sorry for what?" "For slapping me over a broken teacup? For allowing her husband to give me to her son? For participating in a system that had stolen my life? For not being strong enough to resist it herself?" The apology was too small for the harm done, but it was all she had to give. "Rest now," I told her. "Save your strength." She died before dawn on the 4th day. I closed her eyes and folded her hands on her chest and left the room without speaking to anyone. I walked back to the quarters through the gray early morning, and I felt nothing but exhaustion. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not even pity, just emptiness. But the emptiness didn't last, because when I returned to my cot and finally allowed myself to sleep, I dreamed. I dreamed of my mother, young and strong as I had never seen her in life. She was standing on a riverbank, and she was smiling. "You found it," she said in my dream. "The thing I could never find. You found your voice." I woke with tears on my face and the certainty that something in me had changed permanently. I had crossed into territory from which there was no return, but it was territory I had claimed for myself. I was not the same Grace who had said yes to everything, who had apologized for existing, who had believed that survival required the erasure of self. The months passed. Master Holloway remarried, a younger woman who brought her own slaves and her own expectations. The plantation continued its rhythms, unchanged by Mistress Holloway's death, unchanged by my rebellion. But I had changed, and slowly, imperceptibly, the world around us was changing too. We began to hear rumors of war, of conflicts over slavery that were tearing the country apart. At first, the masters dismissed it as northern agitation that would come to nothing. But the rumors persisted, grew stronger, became news that could not be ignored. There were battles. There were proclamations. There was talk of emancipation. I did not allow myself to hope too much. Hope was dangerous, a luxury I could not afford. But I listened to every scrap of news that reached the quarters. I watched the masters grow nervous and tense. I saw fear enter their eyes, the fear that comes from realizing that the order you believed was natural and permanent might actually be fragile and temporary. And I waited.
Freedom came on a morning in April 1864, not with trumpets or celebration, but with quiet confusion. A Union officer rode onto the plantation with a small detachment of soldiers. He gathered us in the same yard where I had been whipped nearly 2 years before, and he read from a document that declared us free.
Just like that. Free.
Some of the slaves cried. Some fell to their knees in prayer. Some simply stood there, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. I stood very still, letting the words sink in, testing them for truth.
Free.
I was free. We were all free. Master Holloway, I could no longer think of him as master, though the habit would take time to break, stood on his porch and watched his world collapse around him. He said nothing. What was there to say? The system that had given him power, that had defined his entire existence, had just been dismantled by forces beyond his control. In the days that followed, most of the slaves left the plantation. They packed what little they owned and walked away, some with destinations in mind, others simply moving toward the idea of freedom without knowing what it would look like. I stayed a little longer, not out of loyalty, but out of practicality. I needed to plan, to prepare, to understand what freedom meant in practical terms before I stepped into it. Old Ruth gave me the small bundle she had prepared months before, the dried meat, the knife, the directions. "I'm too old to run now," she said. "But you go. You find that life you fought for." I left on a morning much like the one when I had refused Thomas, when I had said the word that changed everything. I walked down the long road away from the plantation with nothing but the clothes on my back and that small bundle of supplies. I did not look back. I live in Baltimore now, in a small room I rent with money I earn from my own labor. It is not much, this freedom. I am still poor, still marked by the color of my skin, still living in a world that does not value me as it should. But it is mine. I choose when to wake and when to sleep. I choose what work to do and for whom. I choose my own name. I kept Grace but dropped Holloway, and now I am simply Grace Freeman, a name I gave myself that speaks my truth. Sometimes young women come to me, women who were born free but still carry the weight of others' expectations, still struggle to find their voices. They ask how I found my courage, how I learned to say no. And I tell them what I learned in that bedroom in Maryland, that obedience, when it requires you to betray yourself, is not a virtue. That there is power in refusal, even when refusal costs you everything. That the first step toward freedom is recognizing that you are already human, already whole, already worthy of the dignity they are trying to deny you. They thought I would obey forever. Master Holloway thought it. Thomas thought it. Perhaps even I thought it before that September morning when something inside me said no more. But forever is a promise that only works one way, and I broke it without permission or apology. I was born in chains, but I learned to walk free long before anyone thought to unlock the door.